Sgt Daniel Perry was just charged with murder and aggravated assault for fatally shooting a protester in Austin in 2020. The man's name, of course, was Garrett Foster. You may have heard about this case. I think we touched on it briefly. We covered so many different shootings and protests last year because there were so many of them. Of course, we're talking about the summer of unrest of 2020. A lot of mayhem following in the aftermath of the George Floyd killing. And now we're still dealing with a lot of the fallout. We just had Derek Chauvin's trial. We've got the other 3 officers' trials coming up. We've got a number of other officers being charged with crimes throughout the country. And this case is also just hitting the court docket. Now, this is Army Sergeant Daniel Perry. This story comes over from the Texas Tribune. It says that he was in fact indicted. He shot and killed Foster. We're going to see him next, who was legally armed at the time. Okay, so we've got Foster. Garrett Foster is right here, and this is his fiance, I believe. And here we have Sergeant Daniel Perry. And so in this shooting, we've got a protest taking place, protesting police brutality last summer. Perry, who did the shooting, this gentleman here, argues that he was firing in self-defense. And so we've got some video footage here. Content warning on this segment. It's not going to be anything that we're going to see up close. We are going to hear some gunshots, though, and we're going to see. The only reason that I want to play this is because it is important for context. There was so much happening so quickly that it's really going to be a difficult case, I think, for both sides to make. If you're a prosecutor or a defense, you're going to see there's a lot of activity happening. So let's get some background here. There's a Travis County in Texas grand jury came back on Thursday. They indicted Army Sergeant Daniel Perry on charges of murder, aggravated assault, and deadly conduct after he shot and killed Garrett Foster, armed protester downtown Austin last year. Former Fort Hood soldier turned himself in, was shortly released after around 2:30 p.m. on a $300,000 bond. So he's out on custody, according to Kristen Dark, spokesman for Travis County Sheriff's Office. Now, as we showed you previously, right, here is Garrett Foster, rest in peace. We have Sergeant Daniel Perry. And, both of these guys are former. Sergeant Daniel Perry was active military. Garrett Foster was former Air Force. And now, of course, Garrett Foster's dead. Right. Okay. So more background on July 25th. What happened here? Perry stopped his car. So Perry is driving the car. Here is Sergeant Daniel Perry. He's driving the car. And when he was stopped, he honked at people protesting police brutality. They walked through the street blocks away from the state capitol. Seconds later, he drove his car into the crowd, the police say. Okay, so we're going to watch this video here in a minute. Foster, who is this gentleman who was shot and killed, 28 years old. He's a white man at the time. He's an Air Force veteran. He had been seen openly carrying an AK-47 rifle at that time, which of course is legal. There are conflicting accounts as to whether Foster raised the rifle to the driver first, but seconds later, Perry, who was also legally armed, shot and killed Foster. Fled the area, said the police. He called the police and reported what happened, said that he shot in self-defense after Foster aimed his weapon at him. Right? So the articles, of course, are identifying the race of both parties. The case and Foster's death sparked outrage and debates over protester safety. The open carrying of firearms in the state's Stand Your Ground law, which allows people to use deadly force against someone if they feel they are in danger. If Perry goes to trial, a conviction could hinge on which man a jury determines made a threat first. Okay, it's a big ask. We're going to watch the video here, at least the first part of it, here in a minute. How do you determine which person started this thing? We have Clint Broden, a Dallas-based attorney. He expressed disappointment, saying that his client was acting out of self-defense, and he's confident that it was something that is going to result in an acquittal. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on here. Here is Garrett Foster. We have some images from some of his other rallies or protests. So here's Garrett Foster, and you can see we've got some other images of him, right? So he's souped up here a little bit, and he's out there. He's got his face mask on. He's got his AK on. He's got a hat on. He's got his cell phone, his sling, and some other things. And there's several images that were sort of gathered of him wearing the same getup. I don't know if this is all from the same night or from different events, but it kind of looks like he's wearing the same outfit. So maybe it's the same, the exact same event. So multiple pictures come out, and you can just sort of see what he's wearing. And let's take a look at the video. Let me just say, first of all, right, these situations are just so unnecessarily painful. I think I understand protesting. I understand people wanting to, get out and make their voice heard. I'm a big proponent of making your voice heard. I try to do what I can here. But when we have situations like this, where you're sort of, arming yourself up and just, and going out to these places, it can invite problems like this. And we see it. We see it with Rittenhouse. We've seen it here. We've seen it at all the different places that we look. So let's watch what's happening here. Let's keep this in context. The whole thing is just tragic because I just don't know what good this achieved, other than we now have a dead guy and we have another guy who is being charged with murder. So it's just sad all around. I want to show you this video. This is just for context. Okay. We're going to hear some gunshots in this, but quickly, let me show you. This is the car that we're talking about. Okay. So this is the sergeant's car that we're thinking is the car. He's driving down the road. A lot of people are in the road. We're going to hear a honk and we're going to see some people turn the other direction. They're just going to go, oh, what? Oh, did you honk at us? Are you trying to run us over? What's going on here? And then we're going to hear some gunshots right after that. So let's take a listen. Watch what happens here.
Every time. Every time. Every time. Every time. Every time. Everybody back up.
All right. So after that, the camera just kind of, goes off because everybody scrambles. And then you go back and you see the man, Foster, down on the ground, and somebody's, giving him chest compressions. And so you start to see, sort of the aftermath. And of course, we didn't play that, but I just wanted to show you for context there, right? Couple dozen people right in that immediate vicinity. A lot of activity happening there, right? A lot of people yelling things. It's dark. You've got a hard line of sight on anything. All right. So what happens now, right? Now we have to say it's a year later. This happened almost 1 year ago. And so we've got a lot of investigations happening. We have a lot of, everybody sort of dissecting the case, interviewing witnesses, reviewing surveillance footage. And at some point, the government has to make a decision. Are we going to charge this person with murder? Yes or no? And there are probably no real time constraints on this case because it was a murder charge. I would guess that they could have filed this later, but I'm not positive, right? Sometimes you have strict statute of limitations, which means you got to file the charge sooner rather than later. So maybe they made that decision. Regardless, they did their investigation. They decided that charges needed to be filed. And I want to show you what the indictment looks like. So here we've got, if we go over to Texas court, we don't actually get a copy of the indictment itself. I have not found that quite yet. I was looking this morning, but we do see 2 cause numbers filed against Daniel Perry, 2 indictments filed 6/25/2021. And you're going to notice down here, we've got an indictment from a grand jury, the 331st grand jury, a motion, signed orders. We have warrants returned. And then we all know that he was released on bond, a $300,000 bond. And so I was trying to find the indictment because I wanted to see sort of, specifically what was in there. And when I was looking this morning, it was not quite out yet. But we are going to hear right now from the district attorney. Okay, he's the Travis County district attorney. His name is Jose Garza. And we're going to hear from him. He's going to tell us that they presented over 150 exhibits. 150 exhibits, 22 witnesses. And he said that this grand jury proceeding took 3 weeks in order to present this case. So as we've talked about here on the show, when this stuff happens, this is all behind closed doors, right? Grand jury proceedings are secret. Sometimes there are some rules where a defendant might be able to come in and submit what's called a Treendez letter, where you can sort of send a letter in and make your case. You can even, at times, go in and actually testify there, apparently in Texas. And so that was all declined, right? So it sounds like right now in this 3-week grand jury proceeding that this was only the government's case, that the grand jury only heard this stuff, 22 witnesses, 150 evidence exhibits over 3 weeks, which is standard, right? That's how this works most of the time. But it sounds like the sergeant just declined to go out there and be a part of it, which is probably the wise decision. The reason being is there are different standards. Okay, with a grand jury, we're talking about a much lower standard than you would in a court. So you sort of want to save your defenses for later down in the trial process. All right, so enough of that. Let's listen in and see what Jose Garza has to say. Here he is.
We're also going to be making some announcements with respect to the death of Garrett Foster. Our office is also announcing today that a Travis County grand jury has returned indictments against Daniel Perry for the charges of murder and aggravated assault in the death of Garrett Foster. The grand jury also returned one indictment for a misdemeanor count of deadly conduct. Mr. Foster was fatally shot while participating in a protest in Austin in July 2020. Evidence presented by our Homicide and Major Crimes Unit included over 150 exhibits and testimony from 22 witnesses over 3 weeks. Prior to the grand jury's proceedings, in addition to the investigation that law enforcement conducted, the district attorney's office also reviewed evidence and interviewed witnesses in order to present the most accurate possible set of facts to the grand jury. Our heart goes out to all those impacted by this immeasurable loss, in particular Mr. Foster's family and friends.
All right, so that is District Attorney Jose Garza. So 150 evidence exhibits, 22 witnesses. That's a lot, right? That's a lot of evidence that they presented. And so you have to ask yourself, what presumably the other witnesses are the people who were there, right? A lot of people there, so they would have gathered their names and interviewed them. During a grand jury proceeding, the defense doesn't present any evidence, so we don't know what Sgt Perry has on from his perspective. So we'll see where this case goes. But now it's it's another murder charge that is sort of coming out of the summer of unrest, and it is for what? What do we get out of that? Did we get any meaningful reform? Did we get any justice reformation in this country as a result? No. The George Floyd bill is dead. Nothing's happening there, right? Joe Biden and Jen Psaki are now turning around and saying, well, no, we're all for fund the police. In fact, $350 billion take the COVID money. That's how excited we are about law enforcement. So been saying that for some time here, but now it is unfortunately coming true. Going to be a lot of law enforcement out there on the back of this new administration. They've always been in favor of big police, which means if you need a good lawyer, well, R&R Law Group might be the one for you. We're located in Scottsdale, Arizona. We offer free case evaluations. You can schedule online. You can get a free consultation at 480-787-0394 or over at rrlawaz.com. We can help with any type of criminal charge in the state of Arizona. Things like DUIs, misdemeanor, domestic violence, felony offenses, anything and everything in between. We have a whole team of people who are just dedicated to helping good people get through the system so that we can help them get things back on track. If you need any help at all, we would love the opportunity, and we would really appreciate any of your referrals. We'll make sure we take very good care of them. Now, if you don't need any legal services, that's a good thing, but you may want some information. There is a law enforcement interaction training program that is available over at gumroad.com/Robert Gruler. If you're an attorney or somebody in the legal space, definitely check out the Gruler Method Legal Mastermind. We meet twice a month. We talk about law firm strategies, how we can be better advocates and better and more effective for our clients and for our teams. So it's a lot of fun. I want to invite you to go check that out. robertgruler.com/Gumroad. All right, let's take a look at what's going on in the chat over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have ZZ the Boxy Cat. So I saw this earlier. Says, hey, maybe we shouldn't be sharing the locals chat on YouTube because it gets a little bit spicy in here. So I'm going to do my best to sort of make sure that we're being in control. We've got Macabre 8519 says, would you ever consider doing a legal analysis of Van Buren versus the U.S. SCOTUS decision? I don't know what that is off the top of my head, so I'll have to take a look at it before I make a decision on that. Now, Darb says the chat is so spicy it'll make you want to slap your mama, which is, that's like really spicy because I would never do that. Thunder has a question. Thunder asked a question about, let's see where this is. He says, Rob, are there now any police shootings are any police shootings justified now if the officer is white? How can they charge him with murder when the deceased was carrying an AK-47, ran his car into the crowd? Mass shooter, the police officer saved lives, but he gets charged. So it's a good question, Thunder. So I don't actually think that was a police officer. That was a sergeant. And, it's a good question, right? I don't know. It's hard to see from that angle really what happened there. And then the reason I played that is because I think it's going to be hard to see from any angle. And remember what's happening here, right? We've got somebody in a car that is sort of surrounded by a bunch of people, and he honks, and it looks like they might be getting agitated and sort of, crashing down on his car. And so then he has to make a decision. And now you're at a situation where you're sort of, two people who flinches first, who draws first. And you saw Garrett Foster had his AK sort of, hanging on a sling over his shoulder. And it's like, if you just, like rotate a little bit, it might look like you're, raising your firearm, and you've got just a situation where everybody is just so volatile that it is like a pressure cooker. Something's going to go off, and it did. And now we have somebody being charged with murder. His life's over. We have Garrett Foster and his fiance. Their lives are over for what? For, I don't know, to go out there and stand around? I don't know. Not a fan of it. I don't like when we lose people for stuff like that. I don't like when we lose people anyways, but it bums me out. All right, we've got, who's next? We got Jeremy says, any idea what triggered the grand jury? When is a grand jury used, and who brings one together? So it's a great question, Jeremy. And that's going to be the prosecutor's office. So, typically when these things happen, you can file charges kind of one of two ways. You can call it a direct complaint, where sort of the government says, we've got enough here, we're going to file a felony charge against one particular person. Or if they're not sure, if it's kind of a situation where they're like, we don't want to make this charging decision because we just don't know, and it may be a little bit too politically volatile, well, then they'll build their case and they'll say, we're going to just give this all over to the grand jury, and we're going to let them decide. That way we can take some of the politics out of it a little bit, which is what happened here. But of course, that's not going to take any politics out of it. It defrays the duty a little bit. It delegates it to another more independent body. And then the prosecutor can come back and say, listen, they returned the indictment and we're going to prosecute it based on their finding that there was enough probable cause to bring these charges forward. Good question. We've got Ghost Gunner is here, says, I avoid taking the pavement temp challenge by not pointing my rifle at people. The memes on this one were very spicy when it happened. Yeah. A lot of spicy memes out there. Got to be careful about those spicy memes over here. Let's see what else. We've got Three Girlies says, both seem to be carrying legally. That's right. Nadarb's here says, there was another angle out there from across the street, if I remember correctly. Okay, so yeah, I haven't seen that. I didn't spend much time digging into some of the clips. Which is such a bummer. We did a frame by frame of Rittenhouse here, and YouTube was not happy about that. So we got to be careful with some of that content. All right, let's see who else is next. We've got Jeremy Matrita here, says, any idea? We got that one. Soul Viking says, since this is part of Texas, it is about as blue as can be in that part. It will be interesting to see how this case proceeds, what they seek. Another example of a terrible waste of life. Yeah, right. It's just awful. It's like both lives are just ruined as a result of what? I don't know. All right. We have Want to Know says, grand juries are used to indict a ham sandwich, and so ADA can figure out how you will testify. A small speed bump. All right. And our last one here of the day, it looks like it's coming in from Be Brave, says, so glad I can watch this on Rumble instead of YouTube, which I'm grateful that you're over there. Be Brave. That's fun. Yeah, we're live streaming on Rumble now, and we're also live streaming on Locals now, but we're not doing it simultaneously. We have to do it independently because it's still in beta. We're still waiting for Locals to finish the finishing touches. We're going to be very patient there, and we tried it this yesterday. We tried a live stream over there, and it worked great, and everybody said that the quality was good, and so it's like, man, we're making some progress. I've been saying this for a long time. Every kind of day that goes by, brick by brick, there are alternatives being built to YouTube, to Twitter, to Facebook, and that's a good thing. A little bit more diversity. All right, we have Nadarb said, let's see, someone had a question you missed earlier, but I don't know where. Let's see if I can find it quickly. Let's go back over to the chat. What else do we have? We have some comments. I got to go a little more. Well, I apologize for that, Nadarb. I'll see if I can maybe find that and round that up for tomorrow. We've got Treendez is here. We got Treendez in the house. Says, happy belated birthday to you, Mom. My dad's birthday is also the 4th. How fun. That's great. Celebrating America with your father. I'm doing it with my mother. It's a lot of fun. We've got, let's see who else before we wrap up. ZZ the Boxing Cat says, kudos to the tech team. Love that tech team. Nice job, tech team. Doing a good job over there. And thank you, ZZ Boxing Cat, for your comments. Jeremy Matrita said, I found multiple articles titled Soros-funded DA indicts Army sergeant, and we've seen a lot of that. Kim Gardner out of, I think that was that Louisiana? Somewhere in the South over there. Missouri, maybe. Kim Gardner, I think, was out of Missouri. That's right. St. Louis, Missouri. with the McCloskeys. We have, who else do we have? Letitia James, I think, was another Soros prosecutor out of New York, the New York Attorney General. And we've got a lot of other prosecutors around the country as well doing the very same thing. And those were all great questions. They came over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Want to invite you to join us over there because we have a monthly meetup coming up on Saturday, July 24th, right here, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you want to register for this, this will be our third Zoom meetup, and it's available at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And I want to invite you to go and check that out. And that, my friends, is it for me for the day on this lovely Monday. I hope everybody had a very happy 4th. Thank you so much for joining me here. We're going to be back here the rest of the week at the same place, same time, talking about probably most of the same stuff because there's a lot going on out there in the world, and we got to watch it all together. So I want to thank you all for being here. Everybody have a tremendous evening. Sleep very well. I will see you right back here, same time, same place, 4 p.m. Arizona time, which is 4 p.m. Pacific time, which is 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern time on the East Coast. And for that one Florida man, everybody else, thank you so much for being here. Have a tremendous evening, and I'll see you right here tomorrow. Bye-bye.